phenomenal speaker and author, Andy Lopata, who recently, well, or should I say today, just launched a new book, Just Ask. How are you, Andy, today? Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me on, Olga. I'm good. I'm right in the middle of the maelstrom of publishing a book, so it's a pretty crazy day today.
Oh, yeah, I can tell. I can tell absolutely. But what a name! Just Ask. How did you come up with this idea and why Just Ask and what it's all about? Please do tell us.
Well, you and I both know each other through the Professional Speaking Association, and you know what a strong community it is, and how we're all there to support each other. About 5 years ago, my business was really struggling,
Right.
and I was going to PSA meetings, and people were saying, "How's business?" And what do you think I was saying? It's great. It's really
Great,
good.
yeah.
It's fine. And when I recognized what I was doing and that I wasn't asking for help, there's a lot more to the story, which I cover in the book, but I recognized I was holding myself back and I wasn't allowing people to support me. So I made a commitment that I would turn the business around, but with the help of other people, with the help of my network. And when I had done that and I had the happy ending, if you like, I would share the story in a keynote at the annual convention, which I did in 2016.
Wow.
And the response to that talk told me that that wasn't the end of the journey, and that I really needed um, to take this further. And I remember having lunch with two or three other members, and us talking through the concepts and the ideas. And it just grew from there. And it really, the stories that I've heard, have been told in the interviews I've conducted from the book, the experiences people have gone through, have shown to me that our inability to be vulnerable and ask for help is damaging us on so many levels. It's damaging us as individuals, and there's a strong mental health element. We're supporting a mental health charity, My Black Dog, through the book as well. That it's damaging our businesses or our careers because we're not seeking the help that will take us to the next level or help us complete projects more effectively, win business more effectively, whatever it might be. And it's damaging organizations because the culture isn't encouraging people to collaborate and share and admit when they don't know the answer. So there's so much damage being done because we try and be strong all the time. And to turn that around, we've got to learn to just ask.
I love that. And I think you're so, so right. There's such a big stigma about vulnerability and asking for help. We still have this stigma that if you ask for help, it is a weakness.
Yeah.
If you ask for help, it's a more feminine trait. But actually, asking for help is a strength.
Definitely. I mean, I make that point really clearly in the book, that vulnerability is a strength. And it was interesting that you say that asking for help is seen as a feminine trait, because I did look at gender differences, and it's a fascinating subject. It's not as black and white as I half expected it to be. And it changes based on the society, you grow up in. I mean, for example, Russia is a very patriarchal society. It's a very macho society where it wouldn't be expected at all. If you took the US, for example, it would probably be easier to be vulnerable in that type of environment. India, very patriarchal. So there are those elements in there. And the flip side of that is the challenges for women being vulnerable in the workplace, particularly in workplaces which are dominated traditionally by men. You've got the image of, I always look at Dragon's Den on television and think, why they always portray business women as these macho, strong, unfeminine people. That's the image we seem to get in The Apprentice and Dragon's Den and all of these portrayals of women in business on television. Is this macho, invulnerable image, and it's the wrong message. But that's what so many women find themselves trapped in when they're trying to progress in a male-dominated environment. So it might be a more feminine trait, but it doesn't necessarily make it easier for women to ask for help than men.
No, and you're so right. And it's not easy at all, especially if women have some abandonment issues or they were left by their father or lost
Mm.
their father, yeah, it gets even harder because then they
Yeah.
never had really role model who actually would be there for them, who would be supporting them, who would be helping them when they need it. So yes, it's a big, big issue, and I'm happy to admit that. Well, not like I'm happy celebrating that, but I don't mind to admit it. I had a big issue asking for help. Big, big issue. That was my challenge. That was my issue, and I struggled. And for me, learning how to ask for help was a big breakthrough in my career.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was a massive shift.
And it is for so many people, and unfortunately, so many more people haven't had that breakthrough yet, and might not even be aware that they need it. And that's really what I want to achieve with the book, is to get the message out there that it is okay.
Mm.
And just find a trusted source. I gave a talk on this topic on Thursday night, and in the chat, someone said, "Well, what about if you don't trust anyone?" And it says to me, you have to start building, putting bricks in place to rebuild your ability to trust. And the message of the book isn't run outside and just ask anyone for help. It is about finding people you trust, but build a trusted circle around you, and you'll get burnt. We all do, but we have to bounce back from it.
Exactly. And it's not about asking for help million people in the world. It's about having your safe inner circle where
Yeah,
you feel safe to either brainstorm on ideas, to share your dreams, to share your aspirations, to share your pain, to share whatever is on your heart. Because if you don't have a close circle of people whom you can share and whom you can ask, how can you progress in life?
that's it. That's it. The whole point that underpins the work I've done for over 20 years is that we can achieve so much more together than we can on our own. If we can tap into the expertise, the experience, the different worldviews of people around us, it gives us access to a much greater resource bank than we have naturally within ourselves. But if we're not willing to ask people for that help, they don't know we need it. And if they don't know we need it, they're not going to necessarily offer it up. So we're denying ourselves access to those resources that make our lives easier. So it is a strength to ask for help. I'm struck by resilience is a key topic at the moment, particularly after this year.
Yeah.
And I think that on the face of it, people can easily see resilience and vulnerability as opposite ends of the spectrum. Whereas for me, the ability to be vulnerable makes you more resilient
Mm-hmm.
because it gives you access to more resources that can help you cope with whatever life throws at you. So vulnerability, going back to what you said earlier, is a strength.
Yeah. I like that. I really like that. And also, I think one more skill which is really important right now to have is adaptability.
Yeah,
But again, adaptability comes from practice, just like vulnerability, just like resilience. Everything is trainable. Everything is adaptable. You gain this. And also, I think we naturally just have this. Let's go back to childhood. I think we naturally are good at being resilient. We naturally are stubborn. We naturally are quite adaptive, right? Remember when you were little, when you wanted to ask something from your dad, he didn't let you, you went to your mom, and you were definitely mistaken getting something, right?
yeah.
And we don't try to ask for help when we're little.
But yeah, I mean, going back to childhood, that came up in one of the interviews for the book. I interviewed Hattie Webb, who's a singer, and she was backing singer for Leonard Cohen and Tom Petty, and she talked about, I think it was Louise Hay, the founder of Hay House, something that she said, and it was about how children, a 4-year-old, doesn't think twice. If they need something, they tell you. They ask for help because they tell you all the time.
Mhm.
And I actually picked up on it as Hattie said it, and I just said, maybe we need to be more childlike, and we need to communicate more effectively the needs that we have. If you want the raw human nature, you look at a child, because everything we do post childhood is what society has embedded in us,
Mhm.
and how it's modified our behaviors. And kids ask for help all the time.
Very true. Very true. So it's almost like we need to go back. and learn from children.
Yeah.
I like that. I love
They
that.
can teach us a lot.
Definitely, definitely. But then yeah, I know you also have a podcast, right?
Yes.
Ah, could you please tell us more? Is it connected with Just Us? Because I've seen you have lots of episodes and there's some great episodes. So are those people whom you interviewed on podcast and also in the book?
Not so much, and thank you very much, by the way. It is something that I'm thinking of revisiting over the next year. When I recorded the interviews for the book, initially I wanted to video them and put the videos on YouTube, but I just felt that if I interview people for a book and also record it, it's going to modify what they say and how they say it to me. So I
Mhm.
decided to purely focus on the book because that was my focus. I did think about going back to the recordings and with permission, find elements that could fit into the podcast. The podcast is Connected Leadership, which was the book we talked about in the
Mhm.
summer, which I brought out in June.
Oh
So it's the
yeah.
Connected Leadership podcast. But actually, one of the very first episodes was about this topic. It was about mental health in the workplace and the importance of being able to share. And that was with Jeff McDonald, who is in the book, and Perry Burton, who's the head of culture and talent at Grant Thornton. And they both have, very powerful stories to share about their own breakdowns and how they cope with them. Perry was at Lehman Brothers when the crash came in 2008, and that was the first bank to go. And Jeff was a senior vice president of HR globally at Unilever and had anxiety attack as a result of all the travel and the stress and not letting other people help him and support him in the work that he was doing. So that's a really fascinating podcast to listen to.
Mhm.
Today's episode is someone interviewing me about the book. So I turned the tables a bit and put myself in the interviewee seat. And Thursday, I think will be Just Ask focused as well. But generally, Just Ask is a piece of the jigsaw. The
Mhm.
Connected Leadership podcast is about the role professional relationships play in executive success. Just Ask forms a piece of that jigsaw because having a trusted network that you can turn to for support and advice when you need it, and ideas and feedback and insight, all these things is part of executive success. But it's also a topic on its own.
Definitely, absolutely, absolutely. And I just shared the link at the bottom of the video for
Thank
people
you.
who would like to actually go and check this out, because I think it's quite important to learn from people who clearly have achieved things in their lives. And you're a speaker, you're an author, you have several books, you have your own podcast. So my question to you is, how do you find the time for everything? Because clearly people right now sitting and thinking, oh my God, how this man is managing his life, right? So could you please share, how do you manage your life around writing your awesome books, having your podcast, doing the speaking work, and whatever else you do in life?
I think if my PA is listening to this, she's in hysterics at the moment. I'm It's been a very productive year. So I've written 5 books. Books are like buses with me. In that my first 2 came in 2005, 2006. Then there was nothing to 2011. In 2011, I brought out the second edition of my second book and my third book. That was 9 years ago. There's then been nothing till 2020, and there's been another 2 books. Why have there been 2 in 2020? Well, Just Ask has been a project as a writing project has been 3 years in the making. But in the meantime, the pandemic and even pre-pandemic, a shift in my focus on my business
Mm,
led to a new message that I needed to get out there and new material. And that led to what was originally going to be an ebook, but actually turned into a book, which was Connected Leadership. And the podcast was something that had been in my mind for a while, and this year seemed to be the year to do it. How do I manage the time with all of this? It's also coincided with my record quarter in the business. So the last few weeks have been intense to say the least. You'll know I've put my back out I've been in agony, and I lost a week's work through that. And I'm no doubt a lot of that was stress caused by the increased workload.
mm,
So the answer is probably I haven't managed it that that well. Um, you find a way.
yes.
They always say about busy people still take more on.
Mm,
Um, and you find a way to make it work, and some things get pushed to the back burner. I wanted to introduce group programs, for example, first public programs that I would have run for 12 years or more. I still want to do that in 2021, but with the client work I'm doing at the moment and the book launches and the podcast, something had to give. So I'm halfway through a description of it, and that halfway through has been sat in my inbox for 4 or 5 weeks because it's had to take a lower priority. So I think prioritizing what's important to me right now, what has to be done today, is just ask. I've had 2 clients reach out to me today, and in both cases I've said, can I call you tomorrow? And it's not.
Wow.
And with my clients take absolute priority, but they understand, that today my focus on this. And what I'll always say to myself is, if let's say today was a delivery day for a client, I wouldn't take a call from another client then. I wouldn't let anything else seep in. And so it's just that focus on what's the most important thing right now. We're starting to use Trello boards more, so project management software, so that I can see what's coming up and start to really focus on things a good 2 weeks ahead of when they're needed. But it is a little bit where you need to be in a particular moment right now. And I'm not planning to write a book next year, but who knows?
I really admire your vulnerability here and your transparency. And I think this is a perfect example how you actually walk your talk, because you could have easily said, oh, I just mastered that, and I'm just the master of the time, and I'm just perfect at that. But
I'm
actually
not.
what you did, you were absolutely honest. And I really, really thank you for that and admire you for that. It's not easy to say on camera and in front of everyone that, hey, actually, I'm not perfect. Actually, I do have a challenge, that I have so many things and I'll have to give up on something. So thank you so much for that. That's perfect
Okay,
example of how to be vulnerable.
I'll tell you a secret. I'll tell you a secret, Olga. Don't tell anyone else. I'm nowhere near perfect. Nowhere near. I have so many flaws you wouldn't believe, but I do some things well, and hopefully those are the things that I put out there to the public.
Well, Andy, I'll tell you a secret as well. There is nobody who is perfect. Like, no one is, right? And that's the thing what we all should learn. But I must say, striving for perfection, that was also my challenge.
Yeah.
Because growing up, it was about, you're the eldest, you're the girl, you should know. You studied so well at school, you should know it all. So being perfect is something what we all should get rid of. And the minute you get rid of that, you are so liberated. It's so much easier to live your life because you realize you are just you. With all your flaws, with all your imperfections, you are just you. This is so powerful. So thank you so much for this perfect example of how to be vulnerable and how to be authentic you. This is amazing. But
Can I just share with you there? I think this is a really important point, because one of the chapters in the book, I interview my niece. My niece, at the time I interviewed her, was 21, 22 now, and she's an undergraduate at the University of Birmingham, and she'd been working on a project on was her generation, the millennial generation, the loneliest generation. And I had wanted to write a chapter about the generational differences in vulnerability. So with the work that Sam was doing, I asked her if I could learn from her. And one of the key things that came out, and it also came out in a chapter where I interviewed 2 psychologists, one of whom you'll know, Dr. Linda Shaw, and also Johanna Jameson in the States. And in both chapters, one thing that came out very strongly was the culture we have now of social perfectionism. And it's a very, very damaging culture. And the way I illustrate it in my talks is the number of selfies that people take. Now, you look at the number of selfies on Facebook, well, probably not Facebook for that generation so much anymore, but TikTok, Instagram, and so forth. You look at the number of selfies that are out there, and then think how many selfies have been deleted or discarded before that one's been chosen because it wasn't quite right. There was, I was winking too much slightly in my right eye, and so on. I think it illustrates this perfectly. I've got a talk coming up later this week that's pre-recorded. So it's a pre-recorded video, and then I join for a Q&A after. how many times do you think I recorded the talk? Because I stumbled over a couple of words. Where, you know, it was recorded 4 times or 5 times, whereas if I just delivered it, I wouldn't mind if I stumbled over a word.
Yes,
It's just natural. But we have this need to be perfect, and it's damaging. You know, the time I wasted to just get that absolutely spot on, and it loses authenticity when you do it. So yeah, it's a major issue. You know, that plays out in so many areas of our lives.
it's true. And you're so right here. You know, I do you remember there were times when we used to go to restaurants?
Yes, I went to one yesterday. I'm in tier 2. I went to one yesterday.
Well, because they probably are allowed. We're not allowed here. But
Yeah,
when there
tier
was the
2, you see.
time, yeah, exactly. But when
So
there was the time when we were
yeah.
allowed to go to restaurants, and then somebody has a birthday, and the staff comes out, they all sing happy birthday, and instead of enjoying what people do, everybody, literally everyone, is out with their phones. And you think, it is fun to remember these moments. It is really nice and joyful to remember these moments. But honestly, do you all have to be filming the same candle and the same cake and the same group of people? Have one person filming you all and enjoy the moment. Because you're right, all these phones, all these selfies, all these pictures, as much as we enjoy them, but it can really overkill. And I'm a big fan of pictures. I love photography. And we did a couple of
No,
times
really?
together. So you know I like taking pictures,
I
right?
know you like. I know you like your pictures.
Yes. But same time, it is about enjoying the time, right? And I think
Yeah.
we need to learn how to do that. But again, we kind of went off the topic a little bit here, I think. Right, so going back to just us, I think it's important to have a group of people in your life also who will be taking you back to your main mission, back to your focus. And I think when you do ask people for help, when you ask people for the guidance, when you ask people to get together, even for the mastermind, is when actually you learn most. So, Andy, could you please tell us, how can you help people? You know, what they should reach out to you and how they get in touch with you so they can use your services.
Well, I think the first step, to be honest, on this topic is to get the book. Just buy the book. Just ask, because I do give talks on this, and you got the details below. I do give talks on the topic. It's not something I've developed into training or mentoring yet. It's not really. This was about a message I feel strongly about, rather than promoting any further services that I deliver. The work I do tends to be much more around professional relationships in the broader sense, in terms of influence, referral strategy, bringing teams together within organisations, and so forth. Naturally, by working with people, I'm encouraging them to find in their network the people who can support them, and you know, part of just ask for the referral, just ask for someone to mentor you. I do a lot of work on mentoring and masterminding, but if it's on this topic, start with the book. If you wanted to reach out for me for anything else, the website is lopata.co.uk, Lopata, which you can see on screen. And I've got a name that makes me very easy to find on all the different social media channels.
Yeah, true. That's very true. And don't hesitate. Just ask Andy if there's anything you have a
Yeah,
question about. Right?
mm,
And I love your
absolutely.
book name, actually. It's so, so hard. It's just ask. It's simple to remember. It's
Yeah,
straight to the point, and it literally says what will be in the book. I love that. Love that. Well,
thank
Andy,
you.
thank you so much for coming today, for sharing your wisdom about the book, about what exactly inspired you to write the book, and for your perfect example about how to be vulnerable, how to be authentic, how to walk your talk. You didn't write the book to say you're all perfectly mastered at the time. You wrote the book to inspire people to be vulnerable, to ask for help, and this is how you walk your talk as well, because you actually are vulnerable, sharing with us your authenticity. So thank you so much. And everybody else who's watching us today, thank you so much for being with us. I unfortunately today faced little technical issues, so I couldn't see the comments. I'm not sure if Angie you saw on your end, but I couldn't see any comments today. But I will get back to all comments, and I'll get back to everybody who was asking any questions. And I will definitely, Angie, for you, will share the details once more in the comments to the website where to buy your book, and also to your website, so people can reach out to you and ask for help. So thank you once more. I'll wish you a wonderful day and see you soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, Olga.